And so next, I would like to introduce Jan Hedvig, my CEO at SimQ, and he's going to give a little bit of an intro.
So, hi everyone, I hope you can hear me and see me properly. Also a warm welcome from me today to the SimQ Conference 2022. So we are very proud to host it this time again online, and we're really hoping that you enjoy it and also find a lot of insights and interesting insights. And now I would like to show you in a short intro what is going on at SimQ. So there's a lot of activities we're following and our team is following. And I just wanted to give you a short update on what is going on. And so to really, SimQ wants to personalize patient care with simulation, and we're really doing a lot to push that forward. And also we started this year or in May with a rebranding, and we rebranded the company from CATFIB Medical to SimQ. So mostly for two reasons. So first of all, to empathize our independence and to build their own consistent global brand and an image across all channels. So we really wanted to have a brand which is sticky and also is very easily to remind and just represents what we are and what we're doing at SimQ. So together combined with the icon, SimQ represents a magnifying glass. So the Q stands for the magnifying glass, and SimQ wants really to provide deeper insights and more information for the development of innovative medical devices, diagnoses, and also therapies. So and together we can take a closer look and give access to these simulation information. And that's why we branded to SimQ. Also, our mission and vision statement was redesigned and reinvented. So what we see with our USP, the simulation models and the computational models, which are very useful in the medical device industry, is with these you can make diagnoses, devices, and therapies unique, like patients. So we can really predict what happens to one patient in a forward simulation with a computational model, and see what happens with one patient and what was happening with his data, instead of using like data approaches where you guess from collected data and further or information you had from the past to what would happen at one patient. So with simulation, you can really predict onto one patient. And that makes the decision, the precision medicine done with computational modeling and simulation really unique. And we want to transfer these technologies. And therefore, we are also certified as a medical device company, of course, to produce software as a medical device. Well, first of all, simulation as a medical device. And therefore, we are also certified to 62304, and we can file medical products in the European Union to get it really into the industry. And at SimQ, we're doing a lot of different activities. So from really developing solutions, so software development, service and consulting, and also a lot of research activities. So these topics are really innovative and new, and you need a lot of research to transfer these new technologies and ideas to the industry. You need a lot of clinical evidence, a lot of testing and testing your relevant ideas in the clinical field, and therefore research is really key to do that. And for example, we are in a research project which is called SimQ AAA. So it's a product which will be used to predict and rupture risk of aortic aneurysms. And therefore we use machine learning, AI, in combination with computational modeling to really make a decision if a surgery is necessary or not for a patient. And also with SimQ PFS, so our prosthetic fitting solution, is therefore to really test your socket fitting, so of a prosthesis socket, to a patient, and test it really virtually with objective criteria, and also in absence of the patient. So you really can make a decision, and very evidence-based decision, and whether the design of the socket is good or not for a patient. And over these transferring, or this research project we're transferring into industry, we're having at the moment 4 main products in development or useful in a useful state to get simulation to patients. So SimQ VIT, SimQ OSA, SimQ RPE, and SimQ OSP. And I will show you today what is the status and how they can be used to make therapies better and more precise. And also, on top of this solution and research work, we do a lot of service and consulting to test medical devices in a virtual laboratory, and also performing in silico clinical trials with virtual organs and testing devices within patients and see how they perform in a patient or on a patient, and supporting all that regulatory approval process and also post-market and so on. And to make that happen, basically we developed in the last years our platform SimQ. So the SimQ platform is really a platform, a development platform, which enables doctors, medical staff to use simulation, computational modeling technologies in predefined workflow in a very easy manner to access these informations. So really to access simulation information, physics information, and so on. And with this scalable and very flexible platform, we can scale this very hardware intense process and bring simulations to the cloud. So there's where we work with Microsoft Azure mainly, and bring these simulations to the cloud to make it scalable and enable it to be used in a clinical environment. And the SimQ platform is really, like, as I said, a development platform. So it's not a platform where everyone can log on. It's a development platform which has the regulatory framework and all things in place you need to bring simulation to the industry. So it's a 13485 certified system and developed after IEC 62304 to really use all of that technical documentation on and on and on, and don't reinvent it all the time. So basically, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So together with SimQ Core, or the SimQ platform, which provides you scalability and infrastructure-based technologies such as the meshing, the solvers, the 3D rendering, DICOM manipulation and handling, viewing, and also automated segmentation with machine learning and AI data handling. So like really handling the DICOM data, the patient data, user management, and really the base regulatory framework, which can be used and can be transferred to other products. So basically, you always just have to take this platform and then put on the so-called SimQ module, which you can see here. So the SimQ module is basically the independent product and the medical question, which you put in a workflow. So basically, you develop a workflow with a computational model, which has to be verified and validated, and then combine it together with your SimQ core and make autonomous products out of it. So which can be used in the clinical environment and for medical device manufacturers in a very scalable and easy way. And now I would like to show you examples of how it can be used to make the treatment better and individualized for every patient. So first of all, I would like to show you our product, SimQ OSA. So SimQ OSA is a software tool to help with diagnosing and help choose therapy or the correct therapy for a patient who's suffering from obstructive sleep apnea. Obstructive sleep apnea is basically a very common and very high prevalent disease. So it's up to 11 or 12% in males in the European and US population, which are suffering from obstructive sleep apnea. And this sleeping disorder is basically collapse of the upper airway or stops during sleep. And through this stopping of breathing in sleep, you're having a lot of problems which come with it. So like in higher blood pressure and depression and fatigue on a daily basis and so on. So there are a lot of really problematic causes and symptoms who come out of this also disease. So, and to identify and localize, so anatomical causes for that sleep-related breathing disorder, we came up with this tool. So we can really objectify the diagnosis through numerical simulations and simulate the pharyngeal airflow and show the anatomical causes why the patient could suffer from OSA. And we also verified and validated a pharyngeal or so-called pharyngeal resistance index with over 110 patients to really give good advice to the physicians if there are anatomical causes present who leads to OSA. And we compared it with these 110 patients with the so-called AHI index, so like how many, so it's like the typical index of identifying how much or how severe the obstructive sleep apnea is in the patient, or if it's there or not. And the cool thing is when you visualize it, you can teach your patient about the disease better, and you can evaluate different treatment options. So which are the most helpful for that. And you also can save a lot of time in the diagnosis for each patient and identifying the suitable therapy. Because the problem with OSA, it's like very hard to find the cause why a patient is suffering from obstructive sleep apnea, but it's very obvious if a patient is suffering from obstructive sleep apnea. And there are good methods to see that, but finding out the causes is more complicated. And we want to bring a solution for that. And now I would like to show you a video of the product SimQ also. So how easy it is to use for a physician to set up these simulations. So first of all, the physician just have to type in a project name and have to upload the DICOM data, so MRI data of the patient. Then he chooses a series, so which is the appropriate one from your MRI data, and can identify if he wants to use the patient data in the project or he wants to have it fully anonymized. After that, they can very easily click with 4 landmarks onto the DICOM geometry, so really in the DICOM, setting the landmarks and creating a patient-specific breathing cycle out of gender, age, the weight, and also the body height, and then just easily send it to a cloud. So just with one click, it will be sent, and then they can download the results. So very, very easy. And then they can really see in predefined results what is an anatomical cause from each patient. So then they can show here, for example, the pharyngeal resistance index in 3D, and also in their up layer with the MRI data to see where it is in the anatomy and to see it easier. Then also the pressure, for example, here you can see the negative pressures which are in the pharynx, and you can also see here in the 2D scene how the pressure is evolving over time, so in a very, very comfortable way. And also you can animate velocities and streamlines and so on. So like standard CFD tools to see where are turbulent areas and where not. So that's very handy and very useful for these physicians. And another example, so which is also really showing in clear evidence of making patient treatments more precise and better to use is SimQ RPE. So SimQ RPE is a surgical planning tool for maxillary expansions. So an usual maxillary expansion, so if patients are older than 18 or they're having a very severe small upper jaw, then they usually do a so-called SARME procedure. So the SARME procedure is called the surgical assisted rapid maxillary expansion. And this procedure is quite usual, but the problem is there are a lot of asymmetric cases. So basically a lot of the outcomes are not guaranteed in these surgeries. And with our tool, we developed a solution to fix the problem together with KLS Martin. So we're doing this tool exclusively for KLS Martin, and they're leveraging our technology to plan these surgeries and make the surgery outcomes better. So there are some challenges in this SARME procedure. So first of all, there's really problems with innovation and blood perfusion of the teeth, because usually you're doing a full effort one osteotomy. So that means the whole maxilla gets cut down from your face, and after that you introduce a so-called distractor device. So it's like a screw which pushes the bone parts or the maxilla apart. And so there's really severe bone trauma in it. And you're getting asymmetric results because each face and each skull is asymmetric. So usually you have to, so that's just normal. And for that, you get a force unbalance in this procedure. And it's quite easy to show. So basically you have an asymmetric anatomy and a symmetrical force brought into by this distractor device, and a symmetric mobilization. So you cut the whole jaw and then you push it apart. So you have different stiffnesses in each side. So, and that just leads to an asymmetric result. So usually there are in 35% of the cases, so papers and journals papers show that in 35% of the cases, or more than 35% of the cases, in these procedures, you have an asymmetry of more than 3 millimeters in the upper jaw. So that's a lot when it comes to occlusion. So like the bite, like the teeth are biting. So 3 millimeters in your jaw, you can imagine, is a lot. And with our solution, we individualize the mobilization. So that means we are calculating proper unloading cuts. We're not doing a full effort one osteotomy. We are just doing a partly osteotomy and introducing unloading cuts to have a symmetric opening of the upper jaw and minimized forces onto the patient's jaw. So with this procedure, we're able to bring really value to the patients. And we're now treated 56 patients with this procedure in the preclinical phase over the last years, and all of them are symmetric. So the outcome is symmetric. And on this way, we at SimQ also identified it is really hard to collect clinical evidence when you're making precision medicine in these cases. So that's why we came up with a new way, or we had to develop a way to compare the clinical outcomes with our simulations. So in this case, with SimQ RPE, really had to track the maxillary movement, the movement of the teeth. That was not that easy. So what we did is we took patient data pre-op and patient data post-op. And these data to compare is one thing. You can just see the deviation, but it's very hard to tell if it's really a symmetrical movement or not. And that's why we came up with a method to really track every tooth where it moved, and then we really get objective data we can compare. So here you can see in a patient, for example, how the jaw and the teeth are moving, so pre-op and post-op, and to really track the movement and give evidence to it. And in a recent study, we were able to show that we're 70 patients, and these 17 patients, we were able to show that our deviation from left to right of the patients is below 1 millimeter in average. So that's really, really great results in showing that computational modeling can bring value to patients. And not only to patients. So the cool thing also for our customer, KLS Martin, is that they can bring value to their processes and to their products, because they are then able to to make hybrid products. So like a digital part and also a hardware part. So they can use our software tool to perform clinical plannings and surgical plannings with digital methods and manufacture surgical guides, and selling those surgical guides and the digital planning plus the hardware device instead of just selling a hardware device. So it's really added value and added revenue for them. That's really nice. So that's 2 clinical products. So SimQ also, for example, we're filing now at a CE product, and it will be available in May to June next year. SimQ RPE is also a product we're filing now at the notified bodies. Now I come to a product which is called SimQ VIT. So we're also quite proud of it because it brings a lot of value to and security to patients, and concerning a new trend, which is mass customization of medical devices. So you really have to find a way to test virtually test implants, because patient-specific implants cannot be tested. So it's just one device. You're not able to do a physical test for it, and it's not able to find a representative in 510K, an appropriate representative which works for all patients you want to treat with your patient-specific devices. So that's why we came up with this SimQ VIT device, because usually the process of making a patient-specific implant is always the same. So, and it's really often done actually. So it's really picking up a lot, and there are a lot of patient-specific devices out there. So usually you take patient data, so DICOM data, which are uploaded to a medical device manufacturer. These medical device manufacturers doing surgical plannings together based on these DICOM data together with the surgeons in a web meeting or something like this, and then based on this surgical planning together with the surgeon, they do an implant design. And the implant design is usually done by a medical device manufacturer or an engineer who is just doing it from a feeling of guts and some advices, so how to design it, how thick it should be, and that should work for this patient. And then it goes directly to implant manufacturing and to post-processing. And the problem is that there's a lot of quality management in implant manufacturing and also the post-processing before it goes to surgery. So you have to have protocols of your sterilization, of CAD/CAM methods for 3D printing or milling, etc. A lot of quality management has to be done, but in this design area, it's really total black box what you design, and it's not very objective. So that's why we came up with this tool to really digitally do a design verification for each patient, and also reporting it to and filing a report based on FDA standards, so after 1807 standards, into the quality management system in a very, very, very easy way. So I'll show you how that works. So here's our tool, SimQ VIT, which has a few different anatomical regions and workflows. So first of all, the user, so the implant designer, for example, chooses a workflow or an anatomical region. Then he imports the planning data, so from his usual implant design and planning data designs as STL files into the software, VIT. And then he chooses, for example, for the implant, the material. So we have materials, so typical materials like Titan grade 5, Titan grade 2, PEEK, and implant steels. And then to get more information onto these patient-specific geometries, you have to set some landmarks. So that's done in a very, very easy way. As you can see here, you just set some landmarks onto the patient-specific geometry to register it to a known reference. So you have to have a known reference for your workflow. Then you're able to put on a really physiological load case. So in this case, it's a bite on the molar on the right side, and then you can introduce and map those physiological load cases onto the patient-specific geometry. So like really muscle forces and joint reaction forces pulling onto the jaw and pulling onto the anatomical region so that you have physiological loading onto it to see it. Then afterwards, you have to type in your user credential, send it to a cloud where the calculation is done. And then after it's finished, you retrieve it back and take a look at the results in a very easy way. So you can, for example, show the deformation. You can show strains and stresses onto the implant, onto the bones, and also the strains on in the implant. And what we also implemented is a material limit, which I will show you later on what the idea is behind it, how we validate and verify it. So you can have a material limit and show very easily if you're above a certain limit or below a certain limit. And also, which is a very helpful feature for the surgeons, is showing the screw forces. So how high the forces are loaded to really see which screw is necessary and really necessary, because it's usual in surgeries that the drilling holes are getting too hot, and then you have to set a new screw or just leave it out. So that's a decision that is made in surgeries very often. If you have these informations, you can decide on better which screw to put in, or you have to put in which not. And also, as I said, so you can really document it. So with one click, you can produce this FDA guidance following report. So including V&V. So if you want to have it customized for your V&V process, we also can include a lot of information. So like ASME V&V 40, and we do a validation process and put it into these reports to have really a very rigid V&V documented, which can be filed then into the quality management process and show regulatory bodies that you're taking care of your safety of the patient-specific implants. To show you how we build the reference to the material limit, so the basic idea behind it is we are taking physical tests from 510K or CE and recalculate these physical benchtop tests. And with the known damage criteria, damage behavior, we can assess failure criteria. So we can say what is the damage behavior, how much strains and stresses are allowed under cyclic load, etc., and come up with these failure criteria and put on some safety factors. It's really safe for the patient. And then we are able to compare with these data the patient-specific simulation results with the benchtop tests of the 510K or the CE marking. So, and that's very useful for them to really stay in your design envelope, as they say in medical devices or in these patient-specific devices. So, and with this tool and these capabilities, you really can increase the patient safety a lot. So first of all, you can meet regulatory requirements for custom implants, which are coming up or already in place. So like from the EU MDR, a lot of regulatory stuff is coming in also from FDA, and you really have to document much more and for your implants in your patient-specific implants. They're not all considered as custom and can file them through an exemption. So you really have to file them as a medical product and have to collect data. And with our tool, you can really collect these objective data and also for post-market surveillance. So what you can do is really compare it to clinical outcomes from the post-market clinical follow-up and and see what's really happening in patients and all patients, why they are successful or not. And you also can make precise decisions based on biomechanical analysis and patient needs. So you really see what is best for the patient. So you can compare treatment option A to B and see which one is better, which one has lower forces or something like this. So, and you can really visualize also the patient situation to educate your patients or the surgeons. So why you have to design your implant like this or this. That's very important to build trust to the patients and to the surgeons, and also ensure the function and safety of patient-specific implants. So you can see, are they effective, are they safe in this case, like I designed it for each patient or not. And also, which is, I think, the most important, significantly reduce the chances of a patient suffering from post-operative complications, so that you can really assure that you've done the best to treat the patient in the best way. So as you saw, so we showed you the result or the example of BIT on the mandible workflow for a reconstruction case. And so we want to transfer this technology further to other anatomical regions and other devices, so like osteosynthesis plate and other implants, so they work differently. So therefore, we build a workflow library. So there are different workflow, different cases, different boundary conditions, different contexts, et cetera, the different setups we use, and that's why we want to extend it. So from the mandible osteosynthesis plates, for example, we're having a thorax osteosynthesis plate workflow, and maxilla preprosthetic implant workflow, and also a maxilla osteosynthesis plate workflow, and a mandible preprosthetic workflow. And we're now extending that in development to the TMJ, so the joint of the mandible, and also going to orthosis, because we're seeing a big necessity also in orthosis to test them and test these devices if they're working right. And therefore, we are on a research project with Mercuris and others, which is called Sigma 3D, to really get simulations also to orthosis, and first of all in the wrist orthosis. And we also see that customization and testing and regulatory need in the dental area. So dental devices are by definition of MDCG also custom-made devices. And they have to be tested and falling under the same regulations in MDR as the implants. And therefore, we are developing now a workflow to really test dental devices, so like bridges and crowns, etc. And we are really, and you're welcome to extend these workflows. We really want to have more and more workflows, and we're really eager to develop them together with you and in your needs. So for other anatomical regions or other devices, because the trend is growing. And on top of these products we're developing, we're also doing services and consulting, as I said. So I jump now to service and consulting, which we use our technologies for to provide more information. So like, for example, simulation in the approval process. So really like taking simulation and digital evidence and use it for regulatory approval. So virtual testing in the laboratory. So what we can do here is really like simulate ISO, ASTM standards and DIN standards to really cost and time efficient standard testing. So we can really reduce the number of samples that have to be tested in a neutral lab. And also we can perform patient-specific simulations, so really showing how devices work within the patient and within an organ and in interaction with the patient. And also we can collect these data to perform post-market surveillance. So we can collect objective data for and re-simulate patients from a post-market clinical follow-up and really make them more objective. So not like having just a very vague information of, yeah, that surgery was not that good, we had problems with this and that. We can objectify it with simulation models and show why a surgery was maybe unsuccessful or had problems with. And we can show the benefit, the efficacy, and the safety of these devices within a patient in simulation. And what also is really a trend and very, very important, I guess, is extending clinical trials with virtual patients. So today we have a presentation of Karen Lehner from Materialize and also Sven Hermann from our director of consulting and seminars from SimQ. They are presenting at 3 o'clock about how to produce symptomatic patients and then simulate your devices in these situations and extend your clinical trials with virtual patients. And also, if you have questions, you can talk about it with us in our booth in the expo area. And I will thank you, or many thanks now for listening to us. I will wish you a nice day. I hope you can enjoy the conference, and looking forward to talk to you and see you again. Thank you very much. I hand over to my colleague Kelsey now.
Thank you. And Jan, actually, we do have a question. Let's let our camera focus here from our Q&A session here. So if you want to step in with me again, sorry about that. Okay. So the question is do you have any exclusivities with customers, or can you more or less move freely?
So we can definitely move freely as we would like, but it is possible. So like in the case of Careless Martin, we have an exclusivity for a tool we developed. They found it that interesting that they saw we want to have the USP here, and they want to leverage it. So in the case of SimQ RPE, we are exclusive for these SARME procedures, but other than that, we are totally free to move, and everyone is welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again for that very interesting presentation.